So thank you. And if the attendees are going to record as well, there will be probably the most recorded Java user group session, worldwide, right? This is almost like Git. Okay, welcome. I'm a little bit nervous because I had a couple of conferences already behind me, and actually there was a Java Day in Istanbul, and I was not able to connect to the stream, so I had streamed over my channel actually. And Dev Nation, a huge conference with 6,500 attendees, I couldn't connect first, and after 3 minutes, I was surprisingly well connected, and it didn't work perfectly. So, but now, because it's Java user group with Kühne and Nagel infrastructure and Uwe's organization, it worked in a half a second. So I didn't even believe that it would work. I just clicked the button and I'm in. So, which is really nice. Okay, what I will do today is to talk about why everyone is talking about Quarkus, at least in my world, and how the Java user group sessions are working for me, at least. I'm really looking forward to them. They are just fun for me, and you can ask me any questions you like. So the chat is exactly here, and I told Uwe to interrupt me in case there are any questions which I are going to overlook. So please ask questions. Otherwise, it is extremely boring for me. Okay. So how I got the idea for the session, and there was a JUG's Enter survey, but it that the results changed a bit since then. What you see is this is the application frameworks in 2020 or 2019. And you can see Spring Boot is very popular, Spring Framework, and then comes Quarkus. And this is incredible. And if you think about this, Quarkus is 1 year old. And then comes Jakarta, and TensorFlow was actually at the end. So I had no idea why it appears here, but there was a different graphics 2 weeks ago. So I don't know whether this is a live survey. In one point of time, this is in February. So I had to complete some different in mind. Then Micronote, and then Eclipse Microprofile. Jakarta, Quarkus, Eclipse Microprofile. And I thought about that, and or is this? No, this is this. And actually, I never had a Quarkus project without Microprofile. And even most of my Quarkus projects contain Jakarta APIs. And so for me, this doesn't make sense. So how you can separate Microprofile from Quarkus? Because Microprofile itself cannot be used. So you cannot write. This was the same survey. What is the most popular database? JDBC, Oracle, or Sybase, or MS SQL, or Postgres? I mean, okay, JDBC is everything, right? So it's like Microprofile is just API. You cannot execute Microprofile, and also cannot execute JDBC. And or other questions. What is your favorite vehicle? Seat, VW, Audi, or a vehicle from the VW platform group. I mean, also doesn't make any sense. And I thought that okay, if you would just combine Quarkus with Microprofile and even with Jakarta, it should even win, and this would be incredible. So and the question is, why it got so popular, and I will try somehow to show you what I'm thinking about with lots of code, because slides are nice. As you can see, I can also draw some charts, but why people are so excited about Quarkus. And yeah. Okay, nice. So I still enjoy Java. So I started in Java in 1995. In 1997, I'm freelancer, and since then I'm freelancer. So this is my entire. So this is why I don't have my LinkedIn account, because it would one-liner. I'm freelancer since 1997. So this is actually my CV. And what you probably know, there is a blog which is more or less a notepad, not to forget things. For instance, I've actually forgot today. What I will post soon is how to switch the ports in Payara to make it compatible with screen sharing, because I speak a little bit more right now, and I've always have port conflicts on Macs. Small things like that. There are pre-recorded online courses. Probably more interesting is this AirHacks Live. and this is a workshop like this, similar infrastructure, but it's a whole day workshop. And the next one will talk about Java architectures with microprofile and Kafka and whatever. It's just, you know, the entire world of architectures will take place next week. So if you like, attend. It's a podcast. And yeah, nothing else. And this is the workshop. So if you like, attend. You can still register, but there are already sufficient registrations. But the next one will be probably next year. Okay. And what I also did, this is just a warning. The 2 workshops were supposed to be delivered on Airport Munich, and there are lots of registrations already. So what I did is I canceled this on Airport Munich. I think it doesn't have to be on Airport Munich. We can do it online, and no, I think it's safer. So I canceled them, and now they are converted to online workshop both. So if you like, register, and if you already registered for the Airport Munich workshops, then you will have to take part online. And the one microprofile with Quarkus is similar to this one, and the other one will talk about Java frontends. Okay, this is the only sensible slide I have for today. So the workshop is actually not slideless, it's a one slider. And even this slide is no more necessary. So I will skip this in a second because something happened. Oh, there are the Java workshops if you're interested. And this is the last slide. And yeah, and if you like, you can also join the meetup.com airhacks. I try to announce, you know, all the online events also there. So yeah. Okay, nice. So there were the slides. So now content. First, the most important stuff is forgotten. So whatever I will do, I will push it to this repository. And I already prepared some links, and yeah, you will find the examples here. So adambean/junk, and actually I could copy it to the chat. Okay, now it's done. Then first, what I would like to do is to start with Whitefly. And before I do this, this is why I could skip my slide, because this is exactly what I wanted to tell you. And this comes directly from microprofile. So the question is, why microprofile, and why I'm talking about microprofile for about 2 years. And before that, I didn't even mention that. Or if someone asked me, what are your opinion about microprofile? My answer was always, it doesn't make any sense. So why this? How microprofile started was with the first layer. So what microprofile was, and I make it a little bit bigger, it was a subset of Java EE. And for me, starting with a subset, so why I should do this? Because back then the servers were actually small, and they're getting smaller and smaller. There was Open Liberty, and Whitefly became small, and Payara. And they were that small that I actually never used Payara Micro and never used Whitefly Swarm or Thorntail, which is end of life. Yeah. And but what happened with the microprofile is there were more and more APIs which became interesting for me, for my projects. For instance, the most interesting one was metrics. So I could I created small tools for the servers like Lightfish in Glassfish, which connected to the server and pulled all the metrics. So I was okay, I don't need it. We have Prometheus. Fault tolerance. I created a project, Porcupine. Porcupine is the English word for hystrix. And also not needed anymore. So the more we can delete, the better it is. And what fault tolerance are? This fault tolerance, what this means is a set of patterns like circuit breaker, bulkheads, and actually we had a chat at the last Java user group, like meeting with the unknown, and I was the unknown, and I was challenged by the attendees, why you are not using Hystrix. Hystrix is great. And even after the Java user group Hamburg, I remember there were some consultants coming to me and say, what we do is we always add Hystrix, so we have nice charts, and then, it looks more professional. And my counter question was, it looks more professional. What is the added value to the client, except having some charts which are pointless? And what happened is Hystrix was canceled. So now I was in projects try to remove Hystrix from already existing projects because it is no more supported by Netflix. And fault tolerance is something like Hystrix without Hystrix, and even some application servers or runtimes could choose to use Hystrix, but it's not not my problem because I only see the API. Open tracing is distributed tracing, and it works fairly well. So you can have calls between two microservices, and the calls are traced in a central place, and the central place is usually Jaeger tracing. Open API is like Swagger without Swagger, so you can use annotations, microprofile annotations, and you don't have to use Swagger. And as you can see, I always say you don't need Hystrix, you don't need Swagger. So what it means is my application becomes small and nimble, so I can very quickly deploy the application to whatever I like. So last week, there's on YouTube, we used AWS Lambda, and I pushed the application several times during the workshop, and it was very, very quick because what I pushed is just the upper layer. And REST client, okay, this is questionable, but I like to use it for testing. I show it in a second. It is like interface which is implemented by the runtime. And config is the Kubernetes configuration, basically. So you can inject strings or data types, and they are ints, arrays, URIs. And what happens there is like, a hierarchy of configuration source, and the configuration is pulled first from environment entries and then can be overridden, for instance, with system properties. And health is Kubernetes health, liveness, and readiness. And JWT propagation is what happens then is from the JSON Web Token, the groups and the principal are extracted and converted into Java EE or common annotations, roles, and principals. Okay, this is basically it. The funny story is this JSON Web Token and open tracing is very high added value, and the complexity is almost zero. So this open tracing comes with a single annotation called traced in the JSON Web Token. Yeah, it had, I don't even, yeah, there is an annotation called claim, so you can inject claims, but you don't have even use any annotations from JSON Web Token. You can just inject the Java EE principal, for instance. English word for Hystrix is Resilience4j. Resilience4j is just reading a chat. Resilience4j is the suggestion from Netflix to migrate to somewhere. But I think if you can code against an API, you don't ever have to migrate, because I actually don't care how fault tolerance is implemented, whether with Resilience4j, Hystrix, or custom implementation. Yes, specs over implementation, and hi, John. Spec over implementation, very important thing. Why people are talking about Quarkus, you will see in a second, is because Quarkus is nice, but you can just use your own knowledge, your old knowledge, and just migrate to Quarkus, and it will work. So this is actually the point of the workshop, of the session today. And if you think about it, what I do, let's this could be actually a little bit, problematic topics with these specs, but just to change gears in the web arena, I do exactly the same. My clients say, okay, what we should do in the future, and what we do is we delete frameworks and we just go with web standards. And why? Because we never ever have to migrate. So this is the same, the same idea. And also cool. Someone asked me before the show, exactly, convention over configuration. Someone asked me before the show how to migrate Spring Boot to Quarkus. And you have to do something about that. But the cool story is all my ThinWars projects I propagated, I don't know, for 5 to 10 years, they can be almost immediately ported to Quarkus without any, major changes. Yeah, because if you code it against the API, it will work. If you used, and even, let's say, Payara, because some developers like from Payara to use directly Jersey, for instance, right? The Payara implementation. So they were always in trouble because there was the old ComSan Jersey and the new different org Jersey, exactly, org Jersey. And they had even migrate if they upgraded Payara. So, but if you would use JAX-RS, you would be on the safe side. Okay. So John and Gunnar are just discussing, the private stuff, but we have to focus on Quarkus now. And what is so? Microprofile, if you click here on more information, you will see John Klingen. This is exactly the gentleman in the chat. And this is here my way to the specs. And spec HTML. And you have everything. So this is even lower barrier to entry than J2E back then. What I had to do is, to go to JCP and click a checkbox. They could download the PDF. So it was still accessible, but this is easier. And the same is true for Jakarta E specifications. Now you can ask me, who the hell cares about Jakarta E? And I would say a lot of people. Why, for instance? Jakarta bin validation is not a part of Microprofile, but it's a really nice API, and I would like to use it in my projects. The same is true for servlets. Not official part of Microprofile, but sometimes we have to use it. Then CDI is shared, okay. Jakarta authorization also shared. And Jakarta mail is if you have to send mail, you have to send mail. You cannot just say, okay. So, I mean, it is really, for me, there is almost no distinction between Microprofile and Jakarta E, and I don't care. So I use both at the same time, and that's basically it. What's interesting is with Quarkus, you could actually migrate away from EJB the first time without any downside. So I would try to show you why. Okay. So now in the Jakarta spec, let's say I would be interested in Jakarta E authentication. So I can go to authentication 1.1 and I'm on the spec. And the cool story is for me, so my introduction was very short, but the truth is at the beginning I did, I started before the new economy, and this was a crazy times. And the problem was there are so many runtimes or servers, Java servers. It was incredible. So we had, I know lots of stones. So Bluestone, Gemstone, Typestone. I think I'm pretty sure other stones as well. We get Tenga, then WebLogic. We got of course JBoss, NetDynamics, and the cool one where Reza Rahman worked for. Forgot the name. Then we had Tomcat come later, and there was even Jigsaw. Servlet engine from Apache. So and the problematic part was, for me, it was impossible to understand more than two. They were completely different. So some servers, came with property files, the other was XML files. No, XML was not there. Serialized POJOs. This was the way to configure the servers. And then J2E came out, and for me, it was light at the end of the tunnel. So okay, finally. I only have to learn the API, and then I have the chance, to understand multiple runtimes. And this is why I like APIs, because for me it's a lot simpler. And I always try to avoid, to talk directly to the implementation. And I don't know whether you remember, as JDBC came out, I immediately switched to JDBC. This one shouldn't remember. But in projects, I was criticized that, for instance, JDBC is not. You cannot work directly with JDBC because you will always need, the database-specific implementation, which I never did. So sometimes we had a specific stuff, but this was not the rule. Okay. Cool. So then we covered, hopefully, Jakarta E and Microprofile. So why it is still interesting. And for me, it's really a little bit hard how to now, propose new sessions. I should try to write Jakarta E and Microprofile. But actually, if I would write, Microprofile, it's also sufficient because it comes with, the base of Jakarta E. And as you can see here, the first layer, CDAO, JSON-P, JAX-ORS, and JSON-B are actually from Jakarta E8. So I cannot use Microprofile without Jakarta E8. So as you can see, the survey was a little bit problematic, but it was good for Quarkus because if you combine all three, they will quickly win. I guess this is what happened, and they tiered it apart, not to make Quarkus win, probably. I don't know. So this was, of course, joke. Okay, so we have that. Microprofile. This comes later, and now set up Jakarta EE project and call it CyberJUG. So, and what hopefully happened, and hopefully I have lots of archetypes, and don't worry, this is not Quarkus yet, but I needed to explain you the difference. So what this is my typical setup, and this comes with Jakarta E8 and Microprofile, both APIs. And so I don't need any parents because all the dependencies are already included. And what I did here, and by the way, the reference, the link is already in the on the GitHub, so I don't have to show you this to save time. And the nice story is what I did for, I don't know, 1 or 2 years. So and I can actually use or would like to use Java 11 just. And I will ship a new version because Java 15 is out, so I don't need the enable preview anymore. So, but what you see here is this is Jupyter, which causes all the dependencies. But I have only one dependency, and this points to MP REST client. So what I use is, for instance, in all my Java 8 projects, I use integration tests, and this is the interface. This is the REST client, looks like that, and this. This code uses the ping resource client. There's no injection, and I can able to test, black box test my microservice. So this is used in lots of projects, exactly this. Back then, I used JUG-HH client, and this is a little bit faster, a little bit easier. I can easier copy and paste the code. So this is why I switched to this, and works well enough for me. Very good. What John said, this is good that Quarkus started with Hystrix and they switched to homegrown implementation, which is great because I didn't knew that, and I just used the API and it still worked for me. There was no difference or not measurable difference for me, which I don't care what John uses behind the scenes. For me, it's only important that John will provide the functionality, with the microprofile APIs. And by the way, if you would like to know more about John, all his childhood, we recorded a podcast episode together. So, and Gunnar as well, Gunnar Morling with Gunnar. So now we have this. Now, forget about Quarkus. What I would like to do is, I would like to first install Whitefly. And why? Reinstall Whitefly. So this is the brute force installation of Whitefly. What it does is it creates Whitefly from scratch and just extracts Whitefly. And if you take a look, there's a lots of smallerize stuff going on here on Whitefly. And if we check what smallerize actually is, then for me this is not correct. But for me, is smallerize like the reference implementation of microprofile. So it's not correct. All the default or convenient implementation, or yeah. John, what would be correctly? Is it not reference implementation? How to call it? A convenience implementation for microprofile? Is that politically correct? Someone asked me, are your scripts for server installation project set up public brute force? I can give you this, but what this is one-liner is unzip. Remove on unzip, no kidding. So if you like the script, I can give you this, but this is exactly that. And the smallerize is shared implementation, which is used by Whitefly for microprofile implementation. So what it means is I can use Whitefly 21 or Payara or OpenLiberty or Jakarta E, and I have full microprofile implementation plus full Jakarta E implementation for without bothering with that. It's just on the Whitefly. So what it means is, so you are chatting. Uwe, if there is a question to me, just stop me. So I will skip, following the chat because it's very active, which is great. But I have no idea whether there are questions or just conversations. Cool. So now we installed Whitefly. I think now we can start it. So let's start it, and hopefully it starts. Yeah, Java 11 is set up and it started. So you see the startup was somehow fast. This was a cold start. And now the following. What I would like to do is very quickly create a mess just to show you. So first, what I can do, I can tell you the following. What I did for years, stateless. And I say, okay, stateless is like, convention of a configuration. It pulls and starts transactions and provides monitoring. So, okay, nice. Then I would create a class. And this class called, messenger. This is my way if I don't have an idea. So I call it messenger. And this messenger will get injected. And this, by the way, is microprofile config, what I'm using here. And the messenger gets that. with a method public string message return hello CyberJUG-HH hackers, and of course new date, which by the way is identical to JavaScript. So now we have it, and I will have to by the way, the question I get the question all the time, why I'm using Visual Studio Code and no more NetBeans, and the answer is I do a lots of web, and the Visual Studio Code is just great, and I always like to try new things, and Visual Studio Code is free, completely free. So if I start in a company or do some consulting, I don't have, to answer the question how much does it cost and whatever. And by the way, back then I promoted NetBeans, and I was suspected, to work for Sun or get the money from Sun. And now people ask me, no, why you don't like NetBeans anymore? Are you sponsored by Microsoft? Not, I'm not. But the cool story is with Visual Studio Code, you can very quickly start. And I even recorded a video with the entire Java setup and Maven setup. And the cool story is large parts were contributed by Microsoft and Red Hat, of course, but also Microsoft, which is interesting. So exactly. So cool. So we have it. So what I did is I created a Pojo with a property and a ping resource. And what I can do is I can inject the other class here. Inject messenger, and call it this messenger message. Okay, cool. Nice. And of course, what I would like to do is a little bit Prometheus matrix. And what also happened is this is my the archetype is, by the way, in Maven Central, also on GitHub. But what also happened is JUG says configuration, which introduced the resources annotation. Okay, so we have the messenger, we have the resource, and we only have to import the metered. Cool. Okay, now what I also would like to do is a job scheduler. You probably know where I'm going with this, Java. And this job scheduler is a singleton. And I have a method send or wake up attendees every 5 seconds, let's say, otherwise it's going to be messy. And this is schedule, I think 10 or 15 years old annotations, what I show you right now. Schedule, not schedules, schedule, and minute, every minute, and every, let's say, 5 seconds, and then every hour. And then systrace, also new date. Of course, you can do local time and date now. Looks nicer, but yeah, this is where the beginnings of Java. So we have it, hopefully. So what I have is a small project, and yeah. So now let's do the following. I can just switch to what? To CyberJUG and CyberJUG, and start a what? What is the most primitive deployment tool you can probably get? It just watches the changes and copies to all servers I have. And as you can already see, the war is 5K. Why it's possible? Yeah, because microprofile in Jakarta is already included on Whitefly, and you don't have to package and ship it, which is great for clouds and all containers, not physical containers, the virtual one, Docker. Okay, let's see what happens. And as you can see, the schedule is running on Whitefly. And let's see, localhost, completely wrong, 8080 slash CyberJUG resources pink, I think. Pink. Okay, this seems to work. And then matrix, and the port is different. Is 9999990 matrix. And I have also application matrix. And this is like the ping resource total was invoked once. And this comes, without any additional dependencies. This will work forever as long as Whitefly and the other servers are available. Okay, someone says that I'm pinging and I don't hear anything. So there's like, yeah. Now, we have that. The question is, what if I would like to ship it to Quarkus? And as you can see, this is like a little bit problematic application. It uses stateless, it uses singleton, it uses micro profile, it uses Jakarta E. And what I forgot to show you, if I just switch to ST, Maven test compile, fail safe, phase safe, integration test. And as you can see, the integration test was successful. This comes from the integration test. So if I will try, to change the URI like this, hopefully it won't work anymore. So this, the entire setup was done. I could hack, the entire application like this, and yeah, it stopped working, which is a good sign. Okay. I think, so what we learned from that is the following. So what was actually the idea? And then we'll skip the application servers. And by the way, I had also a chat on AIX FM podcast with Bruno Borges, a longer discussion. And I always talk about application servers and Bruno always about application runtimes. And I say, okay, who cares? We can call it, Hugo. But I say, yes, but what I got during the discussion with Bruno Borges is this. If I'm talking about application servers, it implies that the application server will host more than one application, which was, I think, no more true for years. I think, let's see, Adam being one war, one server, or one domain, something like this. Yeah, 7 years ago. So at least, this was the time I wrote the blog post. What I said, why not one application per server domain? 7 years ago, and before that I already did it. So actually in the last, I would say even 8-9 years, I never shipped 2 wars to one application server. I just misused servers as a thin, lean, and fast runtime. And I was too lazy to look for dependencies, create the bundles or whatever. I just downloaded a server, whatever my clients had, and pushed the application, and everyone was happy. Okay. So this is not in the show notes. So yeah, but it's easy to find. Forgot about that. So now what this means is we have a Whitefly, and the Whitefly has exactly one war here, and you saw this, that it was deployed after a second. So there was somewhere you saw, yeah, CyberJUG war was deployed here, and it was activated. And how it is deployed? How it was deployed? The Whitefly is a scanner. It scans for the zips or wars, and it scans fast, but it takes a second, 2 or 5. And then it finds the war, extracts the wars, tries to load the classes, searches for deployment descriptors. And if you think about this is actually waste of resources, because the whole dynamic behavior is no more needed because we have one application per application server. And the attempts, Thorntail, Pyara Micro, I never got them because you could save 10% of memory, but who cares about that? It was not convenient to use. I remember in Thorntail, this was like right size something. Now it is EOL, so I can be negative about that. Right size your microservices or something like that, and you have go to page and you will get questioned, what do you like to use today? JAX or REST with transactions or without transaction, or with what transaction? I say, okay, I mean, after answering all the questions, I would Whitefly, I would probably deliver the first version already. So, so we have Whitefly, which is convenient. You saw I could install Whitefly in 2 seconds, start Whitefly, and deploy the application from scratch, which is very convenient. and probably small. So now let's see. First, PS. This is a nice command, and Gunnar would later explain why this is absolutely not working. No, just kidding. But what you see here, that the Whitefly here ships with, this is the default setting, half a gig of memory, which is not necessary, but this is like, default setting. And it consumes almost half a gig of memory. And so I would like to switch to JVisual VM. And open Whitefly. Monitor. And you see the even a gig. But you can see after garbage collection, it actually consumes 50 megs of RAM. And you can lower it to about 40. So what it means is you can probably ship the entire thing with 128, probably 96 megs or something like this. And so after showing this, many projects were actually said, okay, this is actually incredible. We didn't know that the application server are that small. And at the DevOps conference in Belgium, I actually tested all the application servers. And the largest was WebLogic, but not huge. It was still 100 megs, and all others were significantly smaller. And OpenLiberty is probably is the smallest. Payara is larger than Whitefly, and Tommy and OpenLiberty are smaller than this. And my argument was always, who cares about that? So I mean, if you have a mid-range project, you can afford, RAM. And I saw in the chat there was Sebastian Sperhake. I forgot his Twitter Twitter name, but he told me it's the same here. They just push the entire Payara to not Golden Gate from Amazon, similar to Golden Gate. I was thinking about Oracle, but it's not Oracle. It was the Fargate. And if you would like to listen to this, go to our AirHacks episode with him. So we talked the entire hour about that. Der Arztmann and Fargate. Perfect. So, and this is also my opinion, but yeah, but okay, what I see is we are now wasting some resources for stuff which is really not needed. I'm not talking about, stripping APIs. I'm talking about deployment. Okay, now, Quarkus. So you saw that. And what we should do is to switch to, where is the, so remember that. And now I think we can kill Whitefly. We saw whatever was needed to see. And I would just start with stock without any, archetype, just a stock way of creating Quarkus project. Create. And the project is, group ID is CyberJUG-HH. The artifact ID is QJUG. And something different, and the version is fine, and this is fine, this is also fine. So, QJUG. Okay. So I will kill that. Not kill that. Git add CyberJUG. Git commit. Example Whitefly sample is working. Okay. Was faster than I thought. And now Quarkus project created. So if you like, you can even clone it right now. So all the examples, no magic, you have them now. Okay, now switch to Quarkus, and I would like to open Visual Studio Code again here. So, and so now funny story. Someone from Red Hat, I think it was Caesar, told me, so we are working on new framework and you will like it. And I thought, okay, again, we had already, we had a Whitefly Swarm. We had Thorntail was renamed, and I saw on the third framework, okay, forget it. And I actually didn't want it, to even look at that. And I just was, okay, who cares? I just downloaded the thing, and the first thing I saw is, a set of Maven plugins. So I became even more worried. So, okay, what the hell? Why we need the Maven plugins? And I deleted almost everything. And if you go to my YouTube channel, you will see the first videos, which I started, without any plugins, just to see how it actually works. And John was concerned and said, okay, why am I doing this? Yeah, because I would like to understand, how dependent am I on the thing called Quarkus. And this is basically everything here. So it comes with, so forget this native stuff. This is a Quarkus setup with REST Easy JUnit and REST Assured, which we will delete in a second. This unnecessary dependency. Microprofile REST client is just fine. We saw it already in action. And I would like to build that because I was really, it's like, what happens here? So, and I built the Quarkus. Yeah, exactly. So the tests, there are the integration tests included, which are slow and not needed for now. So we can optimize that. Optimized. Now, if we open the target, you will see here a jar. And I say, okay, fat jar. It's like, what the hell? Why? Who cares about fat jars? It's okay, but this jar is 200K. If this is a fat jar, I'm glad that it is. I mean, this is larger than 5K of thin war, but it is not max. And I took a look at the jar. So I extracted the jar, and we don't have to do this because I think it is here, metainf. Is it actually here? Wait a sec, cyber. I'm just searching for the meta, and if not, you will have to extract the jar here. And I saw that it points to somewhere else, and it points to lib. If you take a look at the lib, you see a lot of dependencies here. But then I got excited. I said, okay, actually, what happens here? It seems like this is like a thin jar, or whatever you call it, a thin war hollow jar, which is just inverse application server, if you will. So this thing with 200K, it launches. This is the main method inside, so there is no deployment. And then it contains my application code, so the business code, and whatever changes really with the release, which is not that rare in Quarkus, but I would say once a month, is in the lib. So, okay, cool. So at least, this is not a Uber jar, which doesn't make any sense at all in my eyes, except you don't have any Docker and no Kubernetes, and you're running on bare metal. So this is understandable. But what it means is it were like application servers without deployment. So okay, looks interesting. So and now, of course, I would like to show you also how the code looks like. And what happened was there is one single Hello resource here, which is basically JUG-HH. So this is exactly the same API as Whitefly, which I also liked. Because if they were starting with Vertex or another framework, which frameworks are coming and going, I would say, okay, I'm absolutely not interested. But this is like hundreds of projects I saw, and I said, okay, this is just proven stuff, my familiar APIs with something new. So if I start the thing here, Maven, Java minus jar. Just do it the brutal way. Target and runner. You have to remember there's a runner. So it starts. I mean, it is fast, but the Whitefly was also not slow. But there is no deployment. So I think it is. If you will measure, it's probably 10 times faster than Whitefly. Fact is, it starts in 0.6 seconds, and an OpenJ9 recently measured is 0.5 seconds, and Quarkus starts in 3 seconds, and deploys takes 2-3 seconds, and this deployment is instantaneous. So this is like okay. If this works, I'm fine. Okay. So what about the memory? PS. So if you take a look on that, we see that it is a 16. So it is how is it? 25% of Whitefly roughly, which is not fair, because I started Quarkus without any settings. If I would start with -X MX 512M, would be larger. But the cool story is I can actually start it with smaller. I can say MX, let's say 8M. Let's see. Okay. And now take a look on that. And now it is, the entire thing is 9 megs. I mean, this is smaller than an empty Jetty or Tomcat container. So I don't think there's any other framework, probably Micronaut, which can be started that way. So the question is why it is so small. So this is the first thing. So people are coming to me, and what happened before. So John can actually testify that. So whatever we chat, we know we chat with John. John is like, people come to me and complain about memory consumption. I say, okay, I don't care because my clients have money. You know, you cannot save a lot of money with memory. But now, if I come into a project and I'll say, okay, do you have problem with memory? I say, yes. Okay, Quarkus. Done. There's no discussion, no meetings, nothing. It's okay. This is the smallest framework you can currently get in Java. And if you're not happy, I think we could try Rust, Go, or C, or Assembler. Assembler is the smallest, but we will take the longest to implement a REST service. Okay, now, to demonstrate you what I did next. So, okay, this looks already interesting. But, by the way, this is not a developer mode. This is a full build, what I did. Now, what you can do is to demonstrate you, just to make it a little bit easier, Quarkus package. This is what I package type. Oh, uberjar, yes, this also works. I usually using a package type uberjar, but seems like I never tried that actually. Let's see. I told you they don't make any sense, and the next thing I do, I launch a uberjar. Let's see whether it is a uberjar. So target. Yes, 10 megs. Why I did it? Everything is so fast, I don't even have time to drink. So I missed the old WebSphere. This was a great time, so we could even go grab a coffee. But right now, you are constant under stress. Now, I would like to skip the... Oh, it was already. Okay, nice. So this is this, and what I would like to do is to reveal this in Finder. Open... Reveal in Finder. Okay, there's the runner, and I would like to see everything here. Okay, this is a decompiler, and I was curious to know what kind of magic is applied here. And let's see. So we have the CyberJUG. This is the business code, and we have the hello resource bean. And what you will see, hopefully. A second. I only have to, where is it? Main hello resource. There's nothing, so I was too fast. What I would like to have is a not messenger, let's say ping service Java. And this ping service will have a ping me cyber is great. And in Quarkus, the main difference is I have to annotate everything. Or all classes that are getting to be injected, and SQL date is problematic. I wanted to do this. Okay, now we have it, and hello resource, I wanted actually to inject that. Forgot about that, sorry. Add inject, and inject the ping resource, ping service, and just inject this here. Okay. Now full build. And then, great, so we have already decompiled the thing. And I would like to move this here again. So this is the second runner. As you can see, it was created now. CyberJUG has now more classes, which is great. And the hello resource is here. Took longer. So what you can see here, hopefully you can, yeah. Here happens the dependency injection. So we have hello resource.service. What it means is there is no reflection for dependency injection. So Quarkus tries to avoid dependency injection, reflection at runtime, and it generates code instead. So, and I told you that this is the first time I think that it can be faster or as fast as EJBs, because the whole point of using stateless, and actually we could, you know, in real world, we could have, you know, 20% better performance with EJBs because of pooling, because the problem with request scoped and dependency injection is the entire tree of object is injected on every call. And Java uses reflection behind the scenes, which is slow. And with Quarkus, it is just, you know, set here. So what means there's no overhead and is almost as fast as EJB. So I measured this, is almost no difference. So, okay, there's some discussion behind the scenes. No one interrupted me, so there's no direct, I think, no direct question to me. If yes, someone please, you know, just do a noise and I will answer your question. Okay, so this was the first thing, which say, okay, this is actually interesting. And then I thought about this and looked at the code further. And what happened was I realized that what happens is what Quarkus actually does is even smarter. And I have to say, I had also a chat with Emmanuel Bernard on the podcast. And for me, it was not obvious. For me, probably for the engineers at Red Hat, it was obvious that they can optimize such a thing. For me, as I saw this, it was like, this is so easy and it's beautiful. I never thought about that. And what Quarkus does is it reads, for instance, the deployment descriptors we had for years, persistence XML, for instance, or bin validation or whatever, and generates bytecode. So Quarkus doesn't even have to deliver all the parsers, you know, in order to parse all the deployment descriptors at runtime. So, and because everything happens in advanced and is hardwired, and there's only one class loader, it is, you know, I think the Quarkus performance or memory consumption is as good as, you know, hello main Java. So this is like, there is no magic, a lot of magic in between. A little bit of reflection probably for sure internally, but this is the main difference. And I thought, and so, okay, this is actually the evolution of this, what I knew, thin wars, application servers, if not a revolution. This is the first time a framework does something completely different without, you know, messing up with the APIs. So I wouldn't be absolutely not interested, or I mean, I'm consultant, my project as well, not interested if they will introduce their own APIs, or who cares about that? Because why? You know, Red Hat can lose interest, or Red Hat could be bought by IBM, for instance, or whatever. And then if Quarkus would disappear, then my clients would get problem, and I get question or ask why you advised to use Quarkus, now it's disappeared, now why we hired you. So, but with microprofile, if Quarkus will disappear, I can move to Helidon. Also great runtime, Helidon, nice runtime, and similar to Quarkus. Also open source project, and also very nicely integrated with Jakarta E. So it could be the same story with Helidon here. Okay, cool. So then kill that. This was the decompiler, and proceed with Quarkus. Now, what I can do, or what I would like to do, is to show you something else. And for this purpose, I would like to create a class and call it unused. And this class is request scoped or application scoped. Okay. And now I would like to first copy a thing which I can remember. There was no single question to me. Everything is obvious. So hopefully it was something new to you, not that I'm talking about, the same stuff all the speakers before me also talked. So I would like to copy that to my application properties. And as I said, they don't make any sense. So I will delete the Uber jar.
So there is a question.
Very good.
From Stefan.
Yeah.
Quarkus provides the linker that is missing from the Java compiler.
I don't know what I don't know how to answer the question. I don't understand the question. So the link and so Quarkus, I don't think Quarkus does not provide anything special. So there is what's the misunderstanding probably is what I showed you right now. Oh, the biggest problem or with Quarkus in larger projects is everyone assumes that Quarkus is so small because it runs natively. And this is not true. What I showed you right now is it runs on OpenJDK 11. Whatever I did here is OpenJDK 11, and this is already so small. If I would compile it to native mode, which we could do today, but I mean, this is the typical showcase, it is tiny. So there no Java process can compete with that. This is probably what you mean by J-Link, I think. So in a project, what I always say is we are using Quarkus on JDK, and then everyone is happy because lots of my clients have already, from Azul Systems, Zulu JDK, or from Red Hat or whatever, they have a certified environment and or environment with support, and then they like to run whatever. And the next question is we cannot run, or question statement, we cannot use Quarkus because GraalVM comes from Oracle and therefore it's not supported. It's like, yes, but we don't need GraalVM. And with that, we are already smaller than Tomcat, and then is everyone happy? Okay. Okay, John, answer please the question, because with the linker, I don't think there's nothing to do with linker. But thank you. First questions, I'm really happy. Otherwise, it's like this is the first time ever a session without questions. And even better, the chat is, there's probably 2 megs text in the chat already. So the attendees answering the questions. So there's like, a parallel world here, which is really nice. So as it should be in cyber. Okay, so now Maven compile Quarkus dev. So, and I have to search a little bit and search for oh shit, this was not a very sorry, this was not a very good name. Unused service. And I will have to call the application localhost to see the difference. 8080, and it was hello. Yeah. Not. Unused service, application scoped. This looks good. Ping service, request scoped. So just do it again. So, and let's see. This was wrong key bindings. Unused service. As what you see is removed unused class bean CyberJUG-unused service. So what Quarkus also does, I call it tree shaking. It's exactly what happens in JavaScript world. So all classes, dangling classes, which are not actively injected, are not loaded into the runtime. If you would look, they are still as a class files, but are actually removed from the memory. So this is tree shaking, what actually happens in JavaScript. This is also the only framework I know which does that. So I would say, for me, problem solved. I go to my client side. This is the smallest possible runtime you can currently get with the API we use for 15 years. And then we have the projects. Actually, I get lots of new projects right now just because of, perfect storm. I mean, familiar APIs with completely, how to call it, optimized, not even optimized, revolutionized runtimes, I would say. This is really, completely inverted, right? Okay, so we have it. Now, of course, what you can also do, so I would just check it in so you can try it at home. Tree shaking with Quarkus. Hello versus fellow. Bastian, Bo, thank you. Okay, now we have it. And any questions to me? Because what I will try to do is, you're probably already suspecting this, I will try to port the Whitefly application to Quarkus and see how it goes and what is to do. And this is like, this is also one of the reasons why people are so excited about that. Okay, no questions? Then let's try this. It was CyberJUG, source main Java, everything, to QJUG, source main Java. Yeah, everything is here. How about moving JBoss 5 application to Quarkus? Sasha asked me the question. So you have to do some noise because otherwise you recognize the question. No problem at all, because JBoss 5 is Java EE5, and Java EE5 looked already reasonable. If you had J2E14, so this is like, a lot more XML than Java code, then what I will do, I will migrate first to Whitefly 20, remove all the XML or the interface, just delete, the usual, how to call it, museum stuff, and then port it to Quarkus. Not problem at all. The only problem you always have if you're using Corba or something like this, but then the easiest would be, to use gRPC or something like that. So if someone has CyberJUG, is not QJUG. No, but so what I have here is the following. So we have the hello resource. We have the ping service, ping resource. As you can see, first Quarkus complains it cannot understand metered. And this is the only thing which I don't like about Quarkus is the fact that I always have to add all the extensions first. So the question is, what is an extension? Extension is, for me, is like optimized dependency. So there is maybe you can just add dependencies. You can do it in Quarkus as well. But if you add an extension, which comprises two parts, deployment and runtime part, Quarkus will optimize the code inside the extension so it doesn't use no reflection and so forth. And you should be able to run in dev mode as well as cross-compile the application to native code. So, and what I have to do is to add metrics. And I told you about SmallRye. So if you add something, so this is one of the how to call it, design guidelines in my projects. First start with SmallRye, because SmallRye is microprofile. And so I add the microprofile. What I also would like to show you, I forgot to show you the health to save time, SmallRye health. And I would like, or will have to use a proprietary Quarkus annotation. This is called scheduler. This is not a part of microprofile. And I think we are done. So fault tolerance. So this is not a talk about microprofile, just to know what's special about Quarkus. So let's try now. And so all the dependencies are added, and they are added as, so if you know them, you can just do this, right? You don't have to use the extension. What you saw, there's a new extension coming in Quarkus 1.8 micrometer matrix as well. So what we did is extensions added, and you have the code. Now, the problem, stateless. In Quarkus, there's no stateless. So let's say we are a larger project. We can, of course, search for stateless and replace the stateless with request scoped and transactional. But we have CDI. And what I can do is I can actually create my own annotation boundary, because this is the boundary to the outside world. And this is an annotation interface. And by the way, you could do this even on Whitefly first and then migrate to Quarkus. I don't have to do it now. I could do it on application server. Whitefly, Payara, Tommy, Open Liberty. Everyone understands this is what I'm doing. Stereotype and add target. The target has to be type. And what I would like to do is to have request scoped. And skip transactional for now. So, and what I could do is, and retention, forgot, retention is very important. And the only annotation which is enterprise is stereotype, everything else comes from JDK. So, and retention always runtime, otherwise it won't work. And the cool story is I did this, what I showed you right now, for 10 years because it's standard CDI. And the standard CDI was weld, right? In most application servers. Yeah, and Quarkus comes with Arc, I think is the name of the own CDI extension. I think that this is where the most magic happens in the ARC. Boundary. Okay, so what I can do right now, I can just go to ping resource and say, okay, you are no more a stateless, you are a boundary. Then the messenger is a POJO. In Quarkus, I either have to use request scoped, or what we can do in projects, we can say, okay, or we take that and we create another stereotype control. This one would be empty, but you can just add control stereotype just to indicate, you know, this is like a private class. This is a boundary control entity pattern, which we tend to use in most of my projects in front end and in back end. So we can use annotation for that. But let's say we are too lazy for annotation. We have to annotate it somehow. We could use request scoped, or actually dependent is the most exact representation what actually should happen, because this is what it was before. So dependent is the best interpretation of the Jakarta E so far. And what I also have to port over, forgot about that, is the message here. Message, so I will have to tell Quarkus this what we can skip. The message is hello Hamburg. And the next problem we get is the scheduler. So this is a little bit more problematic because it is singleton and there are no EJB singletons. So the easiest way is to use the application scoped. Application scoped, and there is no schedule. I think it is scheduled. Yeah. Scheduled. And I have to say it's a little bit nicer. And this is based, as far as I saw, on Quartz scheduling. Every 2 seconds. And I think I don't even know whether Quarkus is running or not. Package EJB does not exist. This is true. Somewhere. Yeah. Okay, now it started. As you can see, the timer is running. I think it was every 2 seconds, 5 seconds, but regardless, it works. And I'm just curious how well it works. So if I go, this is what I never tried actually. So if I do this, it probably won't recognize the change. No, but if I... what happens in the recent version of Quarkus, it reacts to JUG-HH configuration. So now it looks to resources. So what I can do is, or what I have to do is, I can say the resources / hello, and I think this was hello with this, and as you can see, this is now working, and it should, you see, every 5 seconds. So this is the, you know, dev mode of Quarkus, which is nice because I can delete another tool I wrote. What is no more necessary. Quarkus is better. By the way, there's also very similar tool if you're using Open Liberty. They are working on similar experience. Okay, so now, and this is migration. So now the entire project is working on Quarkus. What I also have is the same. I have the metrics. And the only thing is the Wi-Fi project had here the context path, which is not available on Quarkus, but you can still do it. You can configure the HTTP server from Quarkus in order to have, you know, exactly the same path as Wi-Fi. So I can ask Quarkus, you know, what about the metrics? And they are the metrics, and I also have the application. Okay, so let's see. Any questions? Yeah. Now, what's also interesting, this is a little bit larger application with lots of extensions. So what I would like to do is to compile it for production use. And so, and I think, yeah, JVisual VM. And this is the QJUG runner, monitor GC. And this is 8 megs heap. And I could even start it again with, yeah, there's a single HTTP port exposed right now, yeah. And there are 12 megs of RAM, the entire application. Okay, so this is like porting from, you know, this is actually also a major part. I helped several projects to port, you know, from Jakarta and Whitefly, Payara, whatever, to Quarkus, because the clients wanted to save memory. And sometimes, and or had the feeling to save memory, the need to save memory. I'm running right now for test purposes a Kubernetes cluster on AWS, and with several machines and control plane all the time, and it will cost me around $150 a month. Of course, you know, if you're a company, you don't have, you know, one environment, then 5, but it's, I mean, this is what it costs, for instance, right? Okay, yeah, you can change the metrics endpoint and whatever you like, but metrics is like the default or even part of microprofile spec. This metrics and applications and health as well. And application server, Quarkus doesn't use any application server, but if you take a look at the lib folder, you will see that it is large parts of Red Hat technologies like Vertex, Whitefly, Hibernate, Panache, for instance, parts of Hibernate. So it's just like proven technology. It's not like reinvented the wheel. So it doesn't use application server at all. It uses the runtimes, and it uses the, I forget the name of the HTTP server. So all these settings you can look up and from, not Netty, how it's called? Undertow, exactly. With the Undertow and all the, this is my understanding that the Undertow already uses reactive. This was in half a year ago. Everything was moved to reactive, how to call it? To reactive paradigm, but we don't care. It just works as before for us. Does Quarkus support fully CDI interceptors? Or fully, I don't know. So there was like, you know, criticism on Quarkus that it doesn't support everything. There's some problems with Quarkus extensions, with CDI extensions. But in practice, it does matter. So we never had a problem in practice. But formally, yes, Quarkus is not fully CDI compliant. Helidon is. Quarkus isn't. And Quarkus doesn't support everything from Jakarta E. But for real world project, it does matter. For instance, right, it doesn't support schedule annotations. So I added D and had to rethink how to use it, and it works. If I would had a startup singleton, I would use CDI startup event. So you always find a solution, and the dependency on Quarkus is minimal in typical enterprise projects. So, questions? I could hack, you know, further. So, for instance, what's always nice is the following. Is it actually? No. What also nice is the following. So if I have Apple didn't even knew that you can do this. So Open API, for instance, this is small RAI, always small RAI Open API, and you see the Camel REST API. Someone asked me before the show how to migrate from Spring Boot to Quarkus. So they have full Camel suite of I would say I would guess 100 Camel extensions now around that. And my understanding is also that the Camel committers, they migrated Camel to be to run on Quarkus. So I think this is what I saw. So small RAI Open API. So and what happens now is I can go here and say curl localhost 8080 slash Open API. And this is sometimes breaks. So I will have to restart that. What's probably the problem is with that, pass must start with slash. But what I wanted to tell you is actually is Quarkus, you don't need this at all. So this is what I was surprised with the resources. So in what you can do is you can completely delete that. Delete that. And then try it again. Okay, now it works. And localhost 8080. It hopefully works, right? Curl localhost 8080 slash Open API. You see the this is the Swagger, which was just this Whiteflag can also do this. It's nothing specific in Quarkus, but what Quarkus does is a little bit more convenience. And what you can do is you can add here Swagger UI, and it already ships Swagger. So I can go here and say, what was it? Try out, and you will get it here. So it already contains Swagger. So OpenLiberty already also contains Swagger. Payara not. So you have to add, you know, your own microprofile extension. And I would say what is also done right in Quarkus is like developer joy. I think the Quarkus engineers, they stolen a lots of ideas from Ruby on Rails back then. And also what it seems like, you know, there's also very nice integration between the configuration and the framework. So so I know here Quarkus, and it already auto completes. Also MP, all the microprofile properties are available here. But even if I go to the Quarkus website, let's say I need let's say Quarkus JSON Web Token. So then I will find using JSON Web Token with Quarkus. And then at the end, usually, there is set of here, what I meant. And they are always the configuration properties. And sometimes you can, even if there are more, you can search in them. And there is also Quarkus cheat sheet. Quarkus cheat. I forgot, I misspelled cheat sheet. Cheating. So, and this comes from a nice guy called Lord of the Jars. And he wrote a book about Quarkus, Quarkus Cookbook, which contains 80% code and very little text. So I would say Quarkus is really perfectly documented. And the great story is, if you don't find documentation in Quarkus, you could search for Open Liberty Guide, and let's say Guide Matrix. So, and you will find the matrix, but these are micro-profile annotations, so they will also work in Quarkus. Or you can search, so this is what I like. So there's a lots of documentation because all the providers, they are using micro-profile. It's the same base API. Okay, questions. So if you've done questions, I could just keep hacking whatever, but then we will know Quarkus is a complete solution. So at one point of time, I will add all the extensions. But small things. For instance, for me, what's very important is this. Course true. So, and now Quarkus exposes really well done course headers. So I can use, my web components apps or JavaScript applications and talk to Quarkus. And the headers are properly included. This is a feature of Undertow, but nicely accessible with that, for instance. And what I did prior to this, so if you search for Adam Bean and course filter, or not, so I created my own little filter, which was not filter, it was a REST filter, not a servlet filter, a JAX REST filter. And this was basically all, but this filter is very primitive. So it was fine for development, but in production, it was just too open. And Quarkus, you can refine that. So Valdem asked me a question, how to do a clustered schedule, some like in Whitefly. I think in Whitefly, it was problematic, Valdemar, because in Whitefly, the Whitefly wrote the schedule data into a flat files first and then to own database. And Payara did it a little bit better. So there was a script where you can store all the definition of schedulers in a central database. But I think if you're talking about clouds, containers, and so forth, there is no more clustering. So if you have to have a clustered, if you would like to have clustered, clustered timers or schedules, I would advise to use Kubernetes jobs, because this is what you should use. And if you cannot use Kubernetes, then if you're running on Docker, then I would implement a singleton microservice which just cares about scheduling. So and this will call the other ones. So if you don't have Kubernetes, you don't have ingress. So I have YouTube video, so you could install HR proxy behind two Quarkus instances and one scheduler which pings them. So someone asked me, Florian Hell asked me, since one of the last version there is also a test HTTP endpoint. Test HTTP endpoint. Very good. Thank you, Florian. I almost forgot something. So about testing. So what I do usually, and before I show you git status, git add. Florian, you are the best. I don't know whether the Java user group has virtual cyber t-shirts, but you should send him a t-shirt. GCM. And what we did actually, Whitefly ported to Quarkus. And I just wanted to use Whitefly because both is Red Hat, so I hope it's fair. So now, this is pushed. Now, let's talk about true microservice tests. So what I tend to do is the following. So I will just kill that. So usually I have archetypes, exactly the same archetypes I had for Jakarta EE, but they are not open yet. And what I did, I started, and they started. What I wanted to say is the archetypes, and I created one archetype called Quarky. And what it did is it added all the extensions I needed. The problem is the Quarkus moves fast now, and I was too lazy to keep with the versions. So I keep this Quarky for my purposes, but I will publish it more often in future. And what my private archetypes are doing, they're also creating this, what I showed you right now. So what you could do, I could add just the system test or black box test into the project, but it does make a lot of sense. So what I tend to do is I create another Quarkus project, create and this is CyberJUG, and this was CyberJUG-HH. And no, so CyberJUG-HH, and just open that. And what I do here is I use, it's exactly the same story as before without application servers. So what I would like to do first is here, I would like to add extension, and the extension is going to be REST client, and this basically it. And I only have here two. I think there is no more test generated, but I still have the strange REST assured. Okay, and now what I can do is the following. I could actually write a unit test now from scratch. So new file, and call it what we actually had, pink resource, right? We had the pink resource. This was, does it actually work? Localhost 8080, I think just pink. Yeah, okay, so now let's test that. And what I would like to do is the following. Pink resource client Java, and this is going to be an interface. And I have to tell Quarkus, or microprofile, nothing to do with Quarkus, register REST client. And usually I always use the config key. Here inside there has to be a config key. Yeah, config key with a unique name, which is getting to be resolved in the microprofile properties file. But for now, I would just go with the base URI. It's good enough. And remove that, and instead do this. Why I'm using config key? Because if it runs on a pipeline on a Jenkins, I can override that with environment entries. Okay, the path was pink. Oh, path was pink. Pink, not pink. And then let's do a string message. This is not right. What I usually doing, this is what I thought, is I returning response. I can check the status code, but for now I know it's working, so just shortcut. And I would like to expose the get produces. And media type text plain, and this basically it, hopefully. So, and what I also need is a test, and this is going to be integration test, is going to be pink resource client IT Java. And this, now it's a little bit proprietary Quarkus stuff, but it's not bad. Quarkus test. And then what I can do is I can actually now inject, so it's easier than before, my pink resource client. So the cool story is I can very easily migrate tests as well. So this is resource client, and call method just message add test. Okay. This resource client message var message and sysout message plus message. Okay, let's see what happens. Maven test compile failsafe integration test. And it inject REST client. This is what I forgot, a qualifier. REST client, sorry. But this would also work in dev mode. So now it worked. As you can see, I got the response here. So we have actually the same architecture as before. We use a stock standard microprofile REST client, and the cool story is now, if I test the interface, I can actually donate the interface to my, to another microservice team, and they already have a working microservice solution. Also, what's interesting is I have here a version of the entire thing and a version of my the version of the black box system test, and I also have a version of the actual microservice. So what I can do is I can test backward compatibility because I have two modules. So I can check out, the old version and see whether they are working against the newest available API. But this was the same what we did before with the system test. But for me, it is one-to-one and even better because with the dependency injection here, I can actually do more stuff. What I could do here, I could inject microprofile configuration. What we also do, for instance, for stress tests. So we are injecting, the threshold and how many threads, and then we use executor service just, to generate some load and see whether the metrics are working. Also a nice tip, what you can do, you can start stress tests for, let's say, 10 seconds, and then pull the microprofile metrics via JSON. They are also available as JSON, and see whether, your performance expectations are actually met. Okay, so a lot happened here in the chat. So I ignored the chat because I wanted to show you something. Okay, so do you have any questions? And I think, Gunnar, you find something out with the RSS. If you like, can you just 2 sentences tell everyone what you find out, and if possible, point to your blog entry or whatever you wrote.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, it's not so exciting, but when you shared it on Twitter, I noticed, I think you were starting the application without setting any max memory, right?
Yeah.
Which means it will take more, as much as it can, essentially. There's no need to do any garbage
Yeah.
collection. And then, well, if you then look at the memory which is consumed at this point in time, it looks worse than it might be because, well, just no GC did run. So as you pointed out earlier today, right? So if you specify the upper limit, it will show you a low value.
Okay.
But then also actually, and that's a nice thing, and I noticed you're still running on JDK 11, right? So let's say you were running on JDK 12 or whatever we have now, 15. Then you also would get better behavior, even if you are using the default G1, because it will eagerly uncommit RAM, which isn't used to the operating system. So in this kind of situation, still in 11, it would hold on to the RAM until like a full GC runs. Whereas now on 12 or later, this would happen eagerly.
Cool.
Yeah.
I thought you find something else, but because what with the memory pressure, this is actually a trick, right? If you give restrict with -XMX the RAM, the garbage collector is more eager to gather the resources. So this is the more pressure, right? But what I didn't know is that there is a different behavior of JDK 12. So I learned something. Thank you. And I'm using a lot JDK 14. But not always. The problem is, with the experimental features, what I really hate. What I really like to do is, to use more the text blocks. And so I'm really happy that JDK 15 is out. So I will switch everything to JDK 15 because then I have, the newest feature without the enable experimental flag.
Yeah, I pasted the link to the
Yeah, perfect. This is really nice. I have to say a really nice, JUG experience. And we never had such an eager community. So it's incredible. I think we have, I don't know, a lot, right?
It's the people in Hamburg. They are known for talking so much.
Ah,
Just kidding.
yeah. Yeah, so just to show us a lot. Okay.
So maybe you can tell a bit more about Panache. We had a quick chat about it, on the chat, but maybe not everybody knows what Panache is and what it can do, or maybe you can even show it.
Not because I don't have, I have no idea whether I have a working database, but I can explain you from the website what it does, or wait a second, I could actually, I'll show you. Quarkus. So Panache is nice, but it's nothing to do with microprofile. So it contradicts whatever I said here. And I would use it, but knowing the consequences. The consequence is if Red Hat or the open source community loses interest in Panache, it's game over. So you will have to do something about that, which is true. If you would use directly Hibernate, is the same story. So you are only safe if you're using JPA, which is well supported by Quarkus. And Quarkus Panache. So I like Panache, and I show you why. I also looked how it works. So what you have to do is you have to say person extends Panache entity, and then what I was really curious, what is actually this? And this, if you click on the superclass, it is a this Panache entity. I believe it is an abstract class, and is like DAO implementation, and generic DAO implementation or repository. You can also call it repository. And I was interested who implemented that, and this is the Emmanuel Bernard, at least at that time, who's the guy behind Hibernate. So I think it is well implemented. And this basically it. And what you get out of that is that you can have static methods, which is, for me, is more domain-driven design almost. So this makes absolute sense that you have person with static method find alive, and you get list of persons back. I wanted to have it for a long time, and I don't know whether John was in the JPA spec group, but what I wanted to have is an entity manager injection into entities. This is what I wanted to have, because with the entity manager inside the entity, I could do something like this, and Quarkus provides that, which is Stefan created Panache, and with that, you can skip another huge part of code, like injecting the entity manager. And if the entity manager is already injected with persistence context, the architects are seeing this and say, okay, now we need a wrapper around the entity manager, and then we need an abstract data accessor and an interface, and then of course we need some mappers. And then at the end of the day, for this code, you will end up having 5 classes and 3 mappers. And with that, is lean and simple. So now, for now, the question is, who cares about that? And what I did is I was asked to be a judge in the Quarkus hackathon, and there were people from Red Hat, and they already looked at on whatever. And what I was curious about the code. So it's okay. The only thing I can contribute anything sensible is just I will review all the code from the applications. So if you are curious, just go to Hackathon Quarkus. You will find that, and you can clone the repositories, as everything is open source, to learn how they build that. And there were some amazing projects. There were projects like one was like fitness or health project, which pulled data from Android devices and tried to find whether someone is sick or got high temperature during the night, corona and stuff like that. And what amazed me is the project were very pragmatic. So this was like, some project had just JAXUR as resource with the Panache, and this basically was. So there was a very little code and a lots of functionality. And this is what I really like. I think this is the trade-off. If you have a small project and you use Panache, and you save, let's say, 10 hours, right? So if Panache die, then you will reinvest the 10 hours or probably 20 hours to get, stock JPA. So I think Panache is great. You only have to know there's not part of microprofile, and Panache currently is only supported by Quarkus. So this is the whole Panache story. But I get, at AirHacks TV, constantly the questions, you know, what is my opinion about the JUG? I think this is the query domain language, exactly the same. There's Lucas Ada. If Lucas Ada loses interest, so then we have a potential problem. And you only have to know it. So that's all, right? And this is always a little bit political discussion, but I know Vue.js is extremely popular framework. And clients, larger companies ask me, you know, what my opinion about Vue.js. And what I usually do is I go to list of committers, contributors, okay, 371 contributors. And we have 172,000 stars, which is more than my Word has. My Word has probably 8, but right? So, and if you take a look on that, contributors, what you will find, or at least it was a few months ago or weeks ago. So it looks like there's one guy who's hyperactive. This is the guy, Ivan Yu from New Jersey and China. And everyone else, I don't know whether they contributed, probably formatted some code, or I don't even know what they did. But there are lots of contributors, but it's really hard, you know, to find what they actually did. So, and the interesting question is, and the Vue bot is the second contributor, which is already suspicious, right? So, but the question is, what happens when this guy gets kids or loses interest or does something else? And we already had the problem in JavaScript with Core.js, for instance. There was one guy who went crazy and had a motorcycle incident, something like this, and was in jail. And now the project was not maintained. So what I wanted to tell you is, if you're using Vue.js, you have to know that if the Ivan Yo disappears, we have a problem. And the problem is, now, will the community take over? And the question is, why they didn't took over right now? So why they are waiting until something happens to the guy? And this is extremely unlikely that this guy will now keep maintaining the code forever. As you can see, it already dried out a little bit. So, and the same can happen with Panache, that Red Hat loses interest. John will switch to something else and will do whatever. And then we have potential problem. But if we saved a lot of time right now, then it's okay, I think. But you have to mention this. I always mention this in projects, and there's, you know, everyone decides, you know, or everyone. So I can just, you know, tell my clients about what is the situation right now, and they have to decide because this is their project, their money. And what I meant, retire. John will never retire because he really enjoys microprofile, I think so. Okay. Coming of age strip. Okay, this is you know, John. This is I'm lacking political correct phrases, so I have to get, you know, English lessons, you know, how to speak correctly at official conferences. So any questions left? So I don't even know. We have 15 minutes, I think, to go. Long time, and I don't like to confuse you now with more stuff. If you like, I could hack something here with Quarkus. Panache, I think I already have on YouTube channel an example. And if you like, you can join this AirHacks Live. There are still a few seats available. Vue, because there's a license limitation, but this is interactive workshop. But I will limit it to at most 30 or 35 people, no more. And yeah.
Sorry to interrupt. I just want to bring up, there was two questions. Basically, they got in a long thread there. One was, why did you hard code the URI in Register REST client? And the second one is about microprofile reactive messaging.
So the URI I hard coded because I'm in system test, and in system test I don't get the auto completion what I usually get, and I didn't knew this what you wrote in chat out of mp/base URI/whatever. So this is like, you know, common convention. If I will name it, let's say QJUG, it will be QJUG/ I think mp-rest/URI. And this is why I did it, but we could fix it together. So let's say, wait a second, we have still time and there are no questions. And the URI, I think if we assume that this is QJUG, then it should be QJUG/ I think mp-rest/URI, right? And HTTP localhost 8080.
And you have to have the fully qualified packaging in there too.
I don't think so, because what this is, I think, not true, because what I could do is I could do here the config key, and I could called the config key CyberJUG, and this is what I usually do. And so the answer was I wanted to save time, in the hope that you will ask me more questions, and if there are no questions, I can fix my insufficient design. Oh, this also will work, but no. Phase safe integration test. Phase safe integration test. Cool, it works. So thank you. Now, of course, what we learned, never hard code theory. Cool. What else? John, there was another question, right? This was this one, and
Yeah, let's see, Adam, maybe some words about microprofile reactive messaging that will extend microprofile in the future.
Yeah, microprofile messaging we use a lot actually, and I confuse both. There is reactive messaging and reactive operators. So always, this is what I always confuse. And we have a microprofile platform, and there is like, how to call it, optional pieces. And GraphQL is also a nice one, but there's a reactive messaging, and I think this is what I mean. Is this yeah. And is this with incoming and outgoing? Is this one, right? And what you can do with it, in all Apache Kafka project, we use exactly this with Quarkus. And what it does is, if you have Kafka running, and if I knew that, I will prepare this, but this is beyond, you know, what I wanted to show you. You could have add incoming annotation on the method parameter, and you can map it in Quarkus properties to Kafka topics, and then the outgoing could be WebSockets. So in one project, really, we are reading Kafka and emitting WebSockets, for instance. But you can read Kafka and write to Kafka. So you get a nice integration between reactive data sources. Like you can, you know, integrate together Kafka with WebSockets, what we did, Kafka with MQTT, which we didn't yet, but it would also work. And so very usable if you have, you know, reactive resources. Having said that, in project where we don't have Kafka and no reactive stuff, we don't use it. Very simple. So this is then not that usable for other projects. So I know there are people who try, you know, to use this for everything, but this would be, you know, the project is going to be unnecessarily complicated and no one will understand what's going on. Yeah. And I think if you go Quarkus Kafka, this is the nice guidelines. Yeah. And this is incoming prices. So it means this is from a named resource prices. What it actually is in a Quarkus configuration. And outgoing is this is converted to my data stream. And what it actually is should be in properties. I think this is will be documented in a second here. And you see that MP messaging outgoing generated is Morai Kafka with this connector, and we are using internal serializers. So, and we use this, and we use also in project Quarkus with the, I think it's called Quarkus Kafka client with the proper topologies. This also works perfectly. And this is probably the easiest and fastest solution to get a nice Kafka integration. And if you are interested, last week I recorded a session, is on there right now, serverless Java. And I did a lot, but at the end, I used Quarkus and I pushed live several times to AWS Lambda because I got lots of questions like now. And instead of, you know, it just pushed all the time, and it also worked well. And what we actually did, we implemented a small application with a JAX resource and shipped it as Lambda. So we actually didn't use any proprietary AWS SDKs, just relied on microprofile and resource. And this is actually great for my clients because, you know, if you use the AWS SDK, you are completely dependent on the MPI. It is really, in my opinion, ugly. But with Quarkus, again, I could use this application and ship it to AWS SDK. So let's see.
Can you say anything about Gradium and
No, because I didn't want it to confuse the people, because usually, you know, this is, we can do that, right? No one asks questions, so now I can do whatever I like. So let's say JUG, Graal, JGraal 11. Now I'm using Graal, Maven clean install, -p native. I think this is the correct. So, and now is the show. This is how you know Quarkus presentation is usually starting. So what happens right now, Quarkus gets cross-compiled using GraalVM, and the cool story is, because Quarkus knows all the dependencies around, it can it knows, you know, what we are actually using, and passes all the set of dependencies to GraalVM, and the GraalVM optimizes this, and with a little bit of luck, we get in 2 minutes or 3 minutes, depends on the, you know, on my machine, we get an executable image, which is of course bound to my machine. The cool story is you can do the same in a Docker container, which I used for the Lambda talk, because Amazon would like, you know, to use Linux. So you can tell Quarkus build please in Docker container, and it built in the Docker container, and then this native image, and then push this native image to AWS Lambda. And for Kubernetes, there is a nice extension called JIP, where Quarkus is able to build the Docker containers without having even Docker installed, and then pushes this in one right now in one of my projects to ECR, Elastic Container Registry. Yeah, but the summary of the thing is, I don't know whether you attended, you know, the Java user group 2 years ago in Hamburg or 3. If you would take the code and run on Quarkus, it would be exactly the same. And whatever I told you, you know, don't use any dependencies, it happened to be true. So the project, which, you know, just run on, and by the way, we were, I think, in Spiegel once, and they also used Payara back then, and they were in my workshops, and now they can very easily migrate, for instance, to Quarkus and save even more memory. Yeah. Now I have it's a little bit noisy, so my machine is really hot. Hey Gunnar, you are more and more challenging, but this is the runner. And now watch this. If we do that, you see that this is 42 megs, the runner, but this is no more Quarkus. This is, if you will, the entire JVM with all the dependencies, with Quarkus and the entire application. So if we push this wherever, it will just run. And hopefully kill Java. So what I also kill is the language server from Visual Studio Code, so don't do it too often. QJUG snapshot runner. And now it started in, what was it? In yeah, our scheduler. This is now native mode. And now we go to PS. And this is the runner, and now it uses, what is it, 25 megs? Everything? There's no more heap, 25 megs, I think. But you see, this is no more Java. So this is the application. But look how fast it starts. So this is serverless, right? So we can just package that, push it to Lambda, and there is no worm type. It just starts in 0.046 seconds. So now you saw the native mode, and I don't like to show it to my clients, because they say, okay, now you compare, you know, apple with oranges, because you cannot compare now Quarkus with whatever other framework, because this runs in native mode and the other not, and this is not supported in production and whatever. So this is an option, and you don't have to use it. And if you use it, you have to be aware this is not a complete, you know, JVM anymore. It is on static image. And another trick. So if we use now build it again. I'm in wrong folder. This is JDK. So this is JDK 11, Java -jar target runner. So and this starts now in 0.6 seconds. If I switch to 911, this has to be fast. This is J9. This is open J9. And I just run it the same. It is a little bit faster. This is unfair. I will have to do it. So it is 20% faster startup time. It is it consumes less memory. So open J9, and both projects are adopt a JDK project. You can use this one or the other one. What are you using to switch JDK again? Black Magic. Export Java Home, alias. You are excited about primitive stuff. Let's say, show you which reinstall Whitefly. This was the magic script from before. So remove Whitefly, unzip Whitefly. But how many alias I have? A lot. I actually at one point of time I wrote an alias to list all the other aliases. But if I work with Java, I remember the Java aliases, and with JavaScript the JavaScript aliases. But they are documented. So for me, alias is documented thing, so I don't have to write it down somewhere. Yeah, this is the kill Java, right? Java. Okay, any questions left? So it's 9 p.m., so I have no idea.